Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly Bushman, and this is the Intentionally Intuitive podcast. Today, we're going to take a look at relationships and numerology. So I highly recommend listening to the intro so that you understand sort of what to listen for and why. So what we're going to be looking at is based on our own personal numerology, what we tend to look for in a partner. Now, this can be for a romantic partner. This can be for friendships, who we surround ourselves with. But this is not about compatibility, okay? Compatibility, when we look at compatibility in numerology, that's very different than what we're looking at today. In compatibility, we're looking at the numerology of each individual and how they sort of interplay, how those energies interplay, and how to open the lines of communication and how to work with one another, and where there might need to be some extra effort put into that connection to make it work, right? Based on, again, the vibrations of the numbers. But in compatibility, we look at the numerology of each individual. And I do actually offer in-depth compatibility reports and readings on my website. So if you're interested in that, just book some time with me. My information is in the description box below. But today, we're actually going to be looking at our own unique numerology and what that says about sort of who we attract, what we look for in another partner or another person, right? Again, it can be any kind of relationship. Now, one thing that I will say is this energy that we look for is based on our life path number and our birthday number. And I've got the calculations down below in the description box for how to calculate for both your life path number and your birthday number. And I recommend listening for both because both interplay and play a part in, again, who we or what we look for as far as characteristics in another person, in another relationship. Now, this is what we subconsciously and consciously look for in a partner based on our own personal numerology. So what I mean by that is, obviously, when we're consciously aware of what we're looking for, it makes sense, right? There's active traits that we are seeking out in another person. But when we subconsciously do that, that's more the soul saying, this is a connection, or these are experiences that we need to have to learn something from this individual, to learn something from this soul contract. And so we can subconsciously seek out sort of the lower vibrations of the energy to teach us something. And so in this reading today, I'm going to talk about the higher and the lower vibrations of the numbers in a way that will sort of explain what we can learn from both sides of it, right? The higher expression is what we want to sort of incorporate into our own journey, right? Because again, this is the life path number and the birthday number. But for the life path number, we often will seek out an individual who has those traits or those characteristics to teach us how to step into that energy. Because remember, the life path number is what we want to step into in this lifetime. And the lower vibrations of those numbers holds wisdom, right? It has something for us to learn and to overcome and to see, what we don't want to be or what we don't want to attract, right? It's what helps us to really see through another perspective the lower vibration of, let's say, the life path number, so that we can recognize it within ourselves. So essentially, the other person becomes a mirror for us to see what it is, to see what that vibration looks like in the lower octave as well as the higher octave. I want to reiterate that it's not necessarily that the other person has this number as their life path or another prominent placement. So let's say that your life path number is 4. You might be seeking out, consciously or subconsciously, the vibration of the 4 in other people that you meet. But that doesn't mean that they have those numbers in their placements, right? In their report. So again, this is not compatibility. This is strictly based on your own numerology. What I will say about why we look at the life path and the birthday number. So again, the life path number, and again, I recommend listening for both. The life path number is, again, what we are seeking out in another person to sort of teach us how to step into that vibration. So typically we would be looking for someone that has sort of mastered those characteristics, right? Those traits. And that can help us to step into that vibration, right? With the birthday number, this actually reminds us of who we are at our core, because the birthday number shows us what we've mastered in a past lifetime. It's the gifts that we already have innately that we brought forward in this lifetime. So when we seek out someone who has that vibration or has those characteristics, it reminds us of what we already have and can tap into. And so it sort of pushes us in that direction so that we can tap into those gifts, utilize them to help us to step into the life path number. And if we encounter someone who has the characteristics and traits of our birthday number and they're in the lower octave, it can remind us of how we don't want to use that energy in this lifetime, right? Again, essentially becoming a mirror and reminding us of, again, that we want to be in the higher octave of that energy. So there's a lot to kind of take in. So again, if you have any questions, just let me know and I'll be happy to address them as I can in the comment section. But let's take a look at each life path and birthday number and the traits that can hold for a potential partner, friend, colleague, etc., any relationship. All right, let's take a look. Now, if you are a life path 4 or have a birthday number 4, then throughout your journey, you may attract or seek out, consciously or subconsciously, people who have the characteristics or traits of the 4 vibration. And so you can attract people who are in the lower octave of this vibration for the lessons that those can instill. Or you can seek out, subconsciously or consciously, those who have the higher vibration or who have mastered sort of the higher vibration or higher octave of this number. And so let's look at both. Let's start with the lower octave. So this would be a connection or relationship where the person is very set in their ways. This sort of the lower octave of this 4 energy sort of reminds me of like the overbearing, control-hungry father figure or patriarchy type of energy where it's like my way or the highway, or it's sort of that dominating type of controlling energy where things have to be a certain way. They are very systematic. There's no going outside of the system. It's sort of like that like everything is very black or white. There's no in between. There's no gray areas. And as we know with life and humans, with anything, there's a lot of gray area, right? Like life serves up a lot of gray areas. And so someone who's in a lower vibration of this 4 energy can come across as very domineering, very controlling, needing to know what's happening at every moment of the day and what you're doing. And, this would be the parent that would give the very strict curfew. And if you don't make curfew, then the punishment is way more extreme than the crime, so to speak. So it becomes this like, just very dominating, controlling type of energy when it's in its lower vibration. It can also be, of course, along the same theme or same lines. It can be overly traditional and or overly systematic, right? So where it's like whatever has sort of quote unquote worked before is how we're going to do things. There's really no area for thinking outside the box or doing things differently. This is somebody who's stuck in their routine and not even interested in entertaining a different routine, even if it would mean working smarter, not harder, or even if it would mean, healthier, stronger connections with others. This is someone who would be very much about, again, it's my way or the highway. We're going to do it. I know the solution. So this is the way we're going to do it. And there's no compromise. There's no discussion about it. So it's kind of that energy of, saying no, and then, like you ask your parents for something and they say no, and you ask why, you want to talk about it, and they say, because I said so. It's kind of like that kind of energy, but to an extreme. So if you're seeking out someone, again, subconsciously, who has this very strong, domineering, sort of stubborn, stuck in their way kind of energy, it can help you to, move through a very controlling environment to find ways to seek and find liberation, right? Freedom from that environment. And because you would have this energy in your numerology, life path, or birthday, it would show you the energy that it would reflect back to you your own lower vibration, right? That you can then recognize within yourself and work to overcome or work to not fall into, right? So it always serves a greater purpose. The other things about the lower vibration of the 4 would be somebody who holds a grudge, someone who is very detached detached from their emotions, like very much, very stoic. This would be somebody who doesn't talk about emotions, doesn't express emotions, but holds on to, again, resentment, a grudge, etc. This would also possibly be someone who would want to seek revenge in some way. It's also a very solution-focused energy, whether it's in its lower vibration or its higher vibration. But again, we go back to, if it's in its lower vibration, then this is someone who could very well see the intellectual solution and think that they know the best way to get there. And maybe they do, but they're not willing to entertain that there might be different ways to get there and could be more efficient. So you end up sort of hitting your head against the wall when working with someone who is in a lower 4 vibration, because there's sort of no getting through the stubbornness. And so essentially it just makes for an environment where they're always right and there's no room for discussion, which can be really frustrating if you're on the receiving end of that. The other thing with this that I would say as well is this is someone who doesn't often recognize their own limitations. And so they're not someone to ask for or receive help. It becomes sort of this hyper independence of almost martyrdom of, I have to do it myself. I'm the only one who can do it. Do it my way or you're doing it wrong. And that can be very, for so many reasons, right? That can be very suffocating and very much like take away the autonomy of the other person or minimize the attributes of the other person. So it can be very suffocating and very confining, right? It's sort of like the 4 in its lower expression is in its own box and wants to keep everybody in that box. Becomes a very bossy, very opinionated type of energy, where you can see them repeating the same mistakes and not willing to see a different way of doing it, even if it's staring them in the face. So it can become incredibly frustrating as well. And you can also see where it becomes almost like self-sabotage at times, where they're faced with challenges or situations where you could see the solution, but they're not willing to hear it. And so they end up self-sabotaging and repeating the same mistakes, which can be really frustrating if you're in a connection with someone of this vibration. Now, on the other side of this is when you encounter someone who is in the higher vibration or the higher octave of this 4 energy. And so someone like this, again, is still very solution focused, very willing to think outside the box, do things a little bit differently if it will get them to that solution so that they can help others along the way with that solution. So it becomes, again, a very solution-focused energy, someone who's really wants to do good in the world, but is willing to work with others and take on other perspectives in order to get there. It's also a very honest, very loyal energy. So this would be someone who would want to be sort of the rock for someone, right? Like would want to be a safe and secure, or provide a safe and secure environment for the people who are closest to them, or for anybody really. It's a very, very healing sort of heart-centered type of energy when it's in its higher octave. And so it's led by the heart. So these are people who, again, are very intuitive, who are very in tune with their emotions, who are able to work through their emotions in a healthy way, and who invite new perspectives and new ideas, and working together to build better systems and better institutions, or whatever the case may be. Not doing things the way we've always done them, but doing things in a way that helps and serves the greater community. These are very wise individuals, and they're able to share that wisdom in a way where it's not taking from another, right? Like it's not putting themselves on a pedestal or feeling like they are above. It's sharing their wisdom, as well as having space for and listening to the wisdom of others and incorporating that into whatever it is that they want to create. They're very much about building a very strong foundation. They're very patient, they're very persistent, and again, they're very loyal. They also know when to call it quits, or when to shift gears, when to try something new. They're not stuck in their ways. They're sort of malleable, right? They're able to adapt and go with the flow, but in a way where there's a strategy, there's a plan, right? These are the people who you feel like you can really count on, who are going to come through for you. And they're also going to have the space for you to share your feelings and your ideas and your wisdom, and it will be heard and will be utilized in whatever way possible. So it's an incredibly solid, trustworthy, very honest type of energy and person, right? It instills the sense of security and safety for those who come in contact, right? So it's incredibly beautiful. And also very hardworking. They're going to work towards something, not to their detriment, not to the point where it's like they almost become sort of a martyr when it comes to work, but they want to provide that safety and security and sense of community and family home environment type of thing, right? Like you think of a 4 energy, it's the home, it's the house, not only where the soul is housed, but also like the physical home. So for someone who is in their higher octave of the 4, wants to create a very safe and secure home for not only themselves, but the people who inhabit it with them. So it's incredibly beautiful, heart-centered type of energy that is, again, very intuitive, very listens to all sides of themselves while building something, and usually building something together. So if you are seeking out the energies of the 4, the higher octave, it's to help you as a life path 4 to step into that higher vibration, right, of your life path. If you have a birthday of 4, then it's reminding you of what you've already achieved in a past lifetime and brought forward into this lifetime. And you can tap into it, right? You can be that leader, but that builder, right? The one who builds that safety and security and shares your wisdom in a way that builds a stronger sense of community, right? So you have that to tap into, and that person can mirror that for you. So incredibly beautiful energy when it's in the higher octave.